Welcome to the Troy Kearns podcast. We discuss real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and business to help you retire and become financially free. Make sure you share this podcast with someone who could benefit from it and leave us a 5-star review. It truly helps me out. This show will mentor you towards financial freedom. If I can do it, so can you.
Welcome, everybody, to the Troy Kearns podcast. Today, I've got another amazing guest on who I've actually had for the second time, and we had such a good time last time. I feel like it's anytime you could have somebody who's really good at their craft, who's excellent at what they say, and who's got books, who people pay lots of money to, and that you can really give a good session to everybody else. I'd like to welcome Esther Sarphatie from Amsterdam, living in Greece. Welcome to the show.
So much. What an amazing introduction. I feel honored. So nice to be back in your show.
Thank you. And I should mention that you've got almost 2 million viewers between TikTok and Instagram combined. You've got a free online dating book. You offer, for people who want to get educated or want to get therapy, you offer one-on-one coaching online. And you're doing a podcast tour around the country right now, so people can find you. What else do you have got going on before we get into all the questions?
Well, I'm also setting up a course right now, which will be video clips, like videos of about 5 minutes each with topics, which will help people to date better, to meet the partner who actually fits you. Or I'm setting also up another course. I'm setting up many courses, but I'm starting now with the first one, the end of April, to see how it goes and see if people like it.
Awesome. Sounds good. So with that being said, I think the best way to transition into this topic is, so many people are trying to figure out how to get the right one, or if when they have that right one, do they have the right one and what to do? What do you think the number one question that people ask you is as a relationship expert?
Ooh, there's so many number one questions, but one of the top questions are always about the cheating issue. How do I know he's not cheating? Or he has cheated, how can I forgive him? Or I also get very often like, how can I make him commit? That's a very, very common question. Like, how can I make him marry me? Like, fast forward. Women, we are very impatient. We want to close the deal. We don't want to waste our time because time is valuable and time is our youth. So we want to know that this is the guy who's actually going to come through and is going to be our partner, because we invest a lot in the beginning. Women are very good at the first stages of looking good, presenting themselves well. It costs us a lot of energy. So that's why we want to be sure that we're not wasting that energy.
Yeah. So just to follow up with that, you do see a lot of people that date for 5, 7, 10 years. And at a certain point, why is the man not, for me, I did date for 5 years, and me and my wife did get married. And she asked me, she said, would you want to get married? And I was so fearful of marriage just because I knew it didn't work out with my parents. And but then she asked me, what about having kids? I was like, yeah, sure. And so once we had the kids, it was like easy to get married after that. But I think a lot of people just in general are afraid of commitment. Why do you think that we as men are afraid of commitment?
Yeah, I'm not a man, you will correct me, right? But from what I've seen, I can only speak from, my experience, what I've seen with my clients, what I've seen in general with men, and what I know from research. I think men are afraid for the commitment because it's all this responsibility they know they will have to carry. Because it's not just taking care of the wife, protect her, but also provide financially and also be able to have enough finances to support children, right? To have a home and to be able to pay for children until they are, older, college and everything. And then I also think that men are really afraid, which is very, I think, true actually, that they lose their freedom. Because we women, we have this in us. We have this need to control, to know where he is, what he's doing. That's our way of expressing how we care for him. It's very strange. It's very difficult for a woman to be cool and chill and just let him be and not to want to know where he is and when he's coming home. There are few women who are that chill, to be honest. Most of my clients are like freaking out when he doesn't text, these kind of things. So I think men are afraid to lose that freedom, of being able to just, go where they want to go, do what they want to do. And then I also think a third aspect is like some men really fear two different things. Like some men fear like, oh my God, is this going to be the only woman that I'll have sex with for the rest of my life? And the other one is like, oh my God, will I be able as a partner, as a problem solver, as a spouse to be good at that? So I think that also plays a part.
I think those are accurate. I think that a lot of men derive their ego, at least for me, when I was dating. And I know one of your questions that I saw earlier is that you should never ask someone how many women or how many men they've slept with. And I think that's something that me and my wife never discussed. And I think that's a good thing. Why do you think that women or men want to, or I guess, why do you think women want to know how many men that a women have slept with, or how many women that a men have slept with?
Yes, you're right.
Either one.
Yes, exactly. You're so right. I think women want to know because we want to know if this guy is going to stick around, if he's going to cheat. Because if you meet a man who's, let's say, 35 and he's been with so many women and he's kind of open about it, it scares you as a woman. It's like, oh my God, his past, he will repeat his past because men are creatures of habits. So when a man sleeps around, let's say, I don't want to put the label on it, but it kind of shows a person who needs this constant validation, and he finds this in different partners, sexual partners. Because a man who's secure with himself is very happy to be with one partner. He doesn't have this need to constantly be out there and search, for new people to validate him. It also shows a man who's not very careful with his sexual partners because he chooses so many different partners. So is he careful with taking care of himself? You know what I mean? As a woman, you also don't want to get a disease from your partner if he would cheat, besides all the other emotional pain. So I think for women, it makes women insecure. Like, can this man be serious, in a committed relationship if he's met many partners?
Yeah, I get that. So, kind of if a woman or a man has cheated on their spouse, can they be forgiven, or can the person forget about that? Could they ever be trusted again?
I think it depends very much in what stage you are in your life. If you, for example, have been married for years and you have children together, I think it's really worth to try to save the relationship. Sometimes, in an odd way, it even happens that if a spouse cheats, that it can actually be an opportunity to restore what was already broken in the relationship before the partner cheated. Because usually, if a man is, let's say, in a committed relationship and he's not a cheater, because some men are just cheaters, but let's say he's not a cheater, it's possible that he will cheat when he feels unhappy, unvalued, unseen by his wife, unappreciated by his wife. It's possible that he starts to look left and right because he gets validation and appreciation from other random women out there. And men are weaker, I think, than women. I think, you will tell me, I think that when a man sits at a bar, okay, an average man, a good guy, and a woman will come up to him, or several women, and they're very attractive, and he will start to talk with them. If that woman then tries to seduce him, I think it's difficult for a man to resist. I totally understand. I think for women, it's different because we women have this need to connect emotionally. So we cannot just sit at a bar and a guy comes and we have a little chat with him and then we sleep with him. It's more complicated for women, usually, right? So that's how I think it goes. But I think you can recover after cheating, but it takes work. You need to both, go to therapy, talk it out, and find where the actual problem was to begin with.
Doesn't it also depend, like, if somebody was like out there, like kind of the situation, like if it's somebody who's like gone and paid for a prostitute, or versus somebody who's gone out there and had an affair with like an assistant or something, wouldn't that kind of like, you know what I mean? Like because I know people specifically who have like, I'm not going to say their names, but I know people specifically who have like, you know, slept with somebody else's wife or something like that,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to forgive something like that versus somebody that's maybe done something out of, I guess, fantasy or what have you.
I agree. I think that there are different kinds of cheating. If the man, for example, cheats because he felt unseen, unheard, unappreciated, then the woman has to understand that she made some mistakes. Okay. So, of course, that's not a reason for him to cheat. But let's say he comes to a point that he gets the attention from his secretary or from somebody who's close to him on a daily basis. It's possible. The problems start, I think it's harder to forgive cheating if that
Yeah.
man then starts a whole relationship
Mm.
as a mistress with this woman. Like he creates a whole, let's say, memory lane with her. I think that's
Mm.
pretty difficult for a wife to forgive because we women are afraid of the feelings that our man will create for this other woman. It's not so much the sexual act that scares us, it's the fact that he might fall in love with the other woman. That's why it's easier to
Mm.
forgive a one night stand. You know, he was unhappy, then he got drunk, then it just happened.
Mm.
Then, if he had a whole affair that lasted for 6 months, for example, because then we think, oh my God, you know, he must have really felt good with her, better with her than with me. And then we get all these feelings of not feeling validated ourselves by him. You know what I mean? We get all these feelings, we feel like a victim. So that's really complicated to recover from. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Let's transition. I think one of the coolest things that I've heard you say, which I totally identify was, you said, "What's the one thing a man craves most when they walk through the door after a long day?"
Yeah. Well, I've also seen this in my immediate environment. I mean, it's not just something that I research and see out there. I've seen this also with my dad, for example. A man walks through the door. He All day a man has to solve problems, right? Everybody wants something from a man. So when he comes home, he just wants a little bit of peace and quiet. He just wants to be left alone a little bit, you
Yeah.
know, because women, because we have this control issue and we want to be on top of everything and want to know where he was, what happened with this one and that one. And then we have our own issues with the kids, with the house, with money, whatever. We are not patient, you know. We
Mm.
talk to our men when we want to, but we should actually talk to him when it's good for him, because then a man is also way more receptive to actually listen and to want to listen. So I
Mm.
really tell this to all my clients, give him a break, you know, because when he has this break, he can refuel. And then it's way easier to connect with him, you know, instead of bombarding him from the moment that he walks in by you're late, or did you do this, or did you pick up the dry cleaning, or did you pay that bill, or the kids need this or that, you know. So he needs like a little bit of a timeout. That's what I think what a man needs as soon as he comes home.
I think you've nailed it on the on the target button. My wife and me, you get home, the women they want to see you. My wife wants to see me, and it's like, yeah, you just got home. You kind of want to just relax. Your home is your sanctuary, and
Yes.
for you to just go in and then you're asking, it's just like I guess it heightens your stress level to walk through and deal with a bunch of stuff after you've been dealing with a bunch of stuff all day. So I think you nailed it on the button. Um, so why does a man really choose to marry a woman? Is it love, stability, or is it something else?
I think, first of all, a man needs to be ready. And I really believe that women have a biological clock, which means that as soon as we feel that we're running out of time, we need to, you know, have kids, this biological clock starts
Mm.
to tick. And a man has a financial clock, which actually means that when he feels safe financially, then he's more ready to get married, to settle down, because he needs to know that he's able to afford this woman he chooses. So I think that's the most important reason for a man to decide to get married, to be honest, to be financially ready. And then, of course, he needs to also, in general, believe in marriage as a concept, because many
Mm.
people, they don't even believe in marriage. And then the second thing is, I don't think a man will look for like the perfect woman, the model, the who has everything. I think a man needs to feel that she is good enough. And with that, I mean that she covers what he really needs. And what does he really need? He needs her to be agreeable, right? He needs her to be okay with his friends and his family, not, drama stories, because then, he will feel an obstacle in taking this step to marry her. And he needs to feel that his finances are in order. He needs to feel that he can communicate with her. But I don't think that a man is that demanding as we women are when it comes to choosing a partner for life.
Yeah, I think my only thing to add to that from my personal perspective is that what I knew that I needed is someone that was going to make me a better man. Like someone who's going to push me to be my optimal. And that's, I think, one of the secrets that I hear from successful men is that the key to their success is having the right woman in their corner. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's beautifully said, because that's so, so true. I think the most important choice you make in your life is not what you do or where you live, but it's actually who you choose as a partner, because your partner can break you or can make you. And I think it goes both ways. It's the same for women. When you have a man next to you with whom you feel protected and who you feel that he has your back, always, you are able to thrive in a relationship, because the most important thing for a woman, which we cannot give ourselves, we can do everything, we're so independent, but we cannot protect ourselves. This is the truth. Men are
Yeah.
way stronger. A man can protect you. It's different when you have a man in the house. This sounds very conservative maybe, and some women might attack me for this, but it's the truth. We cannot
Yeah.
physically protect ourselves like men can protect us.
Yeah, it's true. The minute I knew that my wife was the one for me is when we cleaned out a dirty house and it was full of just human disgust. And I won't get into the graphic details, but I called my buddies up right after that and I said, she's the one. If she was willing to do this stuff for me, then I know she'll do anything else. And I think that's, like you said, and I think as a man, you want to be able to protect and provide for your woman to feel like you are a man. So I don't think, I mean, that might be conservative, but I also don't believe that men should play in women's sports. So I think we're on the same
I
page.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
So is it a red flag if a man looks at another woman's pictures online and like hearts them, smiles at them?
I think the looking is not a red flag. I think we all look. I think it's normal that a man, he wouldn't be a man if he wouldn't look. And when you're scrolling, it just happens. It's like when you're flipping through a magazine, these pictures of half naked women or beautiful, gorgeous models, it just pops up. But it's
Hmm.
different when a man starts to heart and send, flame emojis and all that stuff, because that shows a certain intention. That shows that he's seeking attention. And that, I don't think it's correct. It's not cheating, but it's like dishonest towards your partner. That's what I think.
Mm, interesting. So who's more likely to cheat in a relationship, a man or a woman?
I think women nowadays cheat almost as much as men do. I think 1 in 5 relationships, somebody cheats. But I think it's completely different from what I at least know how it is. You would think that young men cheat a lot, but it's actually men after the age of 60 who cheat the
Mm,
most. And I guess that has to do with how many years do I still have to live? Can I still make it out there sexually? Can I still prove myself? The fear of this, like, oh my God, I've been with this one partner now for 30, 20 years.
right.
Uh, you know, I want something new because I don't know how long I can still, be useful in that department and all that stuff, I think. And women, they cheat more, apparently, from all the research that I've read when they're younger, in their 20s. And that
Mm,
may have to do with the fact that women are restless in their 20s and they still seek this validation from men because they're not very tuned in yet, with who they are and where they're going in life. I think a woman matures after 32. So before that, she's insecure, she compares herself all the time with others. So maybe that makes her, more cheat more because she needs this validation from different men.
No, that makes sense. That's why you see a lot of old guys with young girls. I mean, like
Yes.
just what you described right there, I was thinking Bill Belichick. He's like
Yes.
I don't know if you know who that guy is, but he's like in his 70s walking around with a 22-year-old or something like that.
I know. Good for him. Maybe it adds years to his life, I don't know. But
I mean, you
yeah.
do see that often with a lot of successful men is even if you look at like a guy like Phil Ruffin, who's 90 years old, I think his wife is now 40, right? But they've been married together for like, 15 years. And so, you see
She's
that a
waiting.
lot.
She's
Yeah.
waiting patiently.
Yeah. And so it's definitely interesting. So going about sex, does size matter
Women or for men?
for women? Does size matter for a guy? Does the size matter for a woman?
If women talk about it, for example, women do talk about it a lot. Like he is this big or that big. Women ask each other. But I think the size doesn't matter. I think the ability of a man in bed matters. I think how much a man gets you in bed matters. I
Mm.
think how much a man is able to please you that matters. How much a man is able to want to please you. From all my clients I speak with and from all the research I've read, this is what my conclusion is. Although in theory we talk about size and we joke about it, in reality it's not the most important thing, you know, for a
Mm.
woman at least. I speak from the how it is for women.
Yeah.
But if, for example, I hear this a lot from women, like Esther, I want him to do this and that, but I feel uncomfortable to ask him because in the beginning, he was kind of doing that, but then he stopped. And I don't know if that is because he doesn't like that or he's not attracted to me like that. So it's very hard for a woman to talk about what she wants in bed from a man. And it's very hard for a man to just out of the blue understand what she wants, right? So
Yeah.
I literally teach my clients different techniques on how to talk to a man in bed and what to say and when to say it in order to make this subject a bit easier to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's when you got to be the most comfortable, right? Is when you're doing that act.
Yeah,
You got to be the most comfortable. You got to be able to let all your inhibitions go. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So, what's the most effective way for a man to seduce a woman without coming on too strong?
To give her compliments about something that nobody compliments her on because we women always get the same compliments. Oh, you're gorgeous, or oh, that dress you're wearing, or oh,
Mm,
can I buy you a drink, or something that in a woman's ears, because women are so spoiled with compliments, it
mm.
sounds lame. She gets this eek feeling. So if you say something to a woman that she out of a compliment that she doesn't expect, she will be floored because she will listen to you. She will be focused on you. And then you can just continue talking and she'll
Can you
be
give me
just
can you give me an example of one of those? Like let's say a woman's always complimented on her eyes. I don't know if that's something or maybe that's the reverse. Maybe they're never complimented on their eyes, and that's the one you throw out there. But I do believe, number one, in that compliments are the way to everybody's heart. Like it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman, but I think that a compliment disarms anybody.
I agree. And men, I think, are in general very thirsty for compliments because you don't get so many compliments. I mean, I often, when I'm with, a lot of people, I watch, I like that, how to see how people communicate. And men with men, from what I see, you don't sit together and say, hey, I love that jacket you're wearing, or that perfume you're wearing is amazing, dude, or something. Men are not like that, right? We
Yeah,
women, we compliment each other all the time, all the time. It's
yeah.
it's it's like when it's almost like you expect it, when you see each other, like you say something nice to each other about each other. We have such a big support system around us of parents who compliment us, girlfriends, co-workers, men. So I think women are pretty spoiled when it comes to compliments. But for example, when a woman walks into a restaurant, for example, and she sits at the bar and a man walks by and he says something about her looks, she will not be impressed. But when he says something, for example, about the way that she walks,
Ooh.
and it's like a smart thing that he says, she will be surprised, because she will be like, whoa, where was he? Where did he see me? You will have her attention. And when you get her off guard, she will be open, because women are very often really nasty with men. Men give nice compliments, and women will just sit there and roll their eyes,
Yeah.
because these are compliments they expect, so they know how to deal with it. They're like, oh, whatever, you're just one of these dudes, unless, of course, you drive an amazing car and she knows you're super rich, then maybe you get her attention. But yeah, these kind of compliments that are subtle and that women don't expect are amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting that you just said that. So that's one of my questions that I have for you is like, I do believe that it's important to be able to track the right mate that you're financially secure. So is that a turn on for most women to have lots of money?
Yeah, lots of money is relative, okay? But I think the problem is, in the society we live in nowadays, it's more money focused than ever. It's really
Yeah.
sad, actually. We're so materialistic. It's almost as if money is literally the most important thing. And even studies came out now. There used to be studies that said that the average person is actually really happy with $50,000 to $75,000 per year income. And
Mm.
now it says that even with more money, the more money people have, the happier they are. Because we've made ourselves believe that if we have lots of money, we are free to do anything we want. And in the world that we live in nowadays, you can literally live 2 months in Bali, then go to Los Angeles, live there for 2 months, rent a villa with a pool. It's so accessible. There's so much wealth out there that if you have money, you have access to all these services. I read yesterday that from next month on in Dubai, you can uh, go into a taxi that's flying, a flying taxi. So, the world of wealth is just getting bigger and bigger and more attractive. So young people nowadays believe, if I have money, I can live like that in Dubai, or I can live like that in Los Angeles. And because of the internet, we follow all these people who have wealth, immediately. So young girls believe if you have a Hermes bag or a Chanel bag, that's it. You're this it girl. So yeah, it's sad. Most women are looking for men who have enough money to live a wealthy life. But life also has become more expensive, right? When my parents were young and they got married, you still had this dream as a man to work in a company. If you would work hard enough, you would become the CEO of this company, you would have a bigger salary, etc., etc. You could buy a house. But nowadays, you need almost, like, if you want like a really nice house, in most good areas, you need like $1 million in, for example, Europe. It's really expensive in Europe. So it's hard. It's really hard. So you already start off with, I need so much money if I want to have a really nice house for my kids with a garden and everything. So all these things don't help for people to look for a relationship based on how you feel, you know?
Yeah, you mentioned the car, and it's so interesting. There's a lot of these guys who do what I do, in terms of like real estate education, and the only thing that they show is the car.
I
So,
know.
but is that like the universal symbolism for that I've made it? Because a lot of guys who I know, including myself, but guys who are even way more successful than I am, they don't show it. I hear it all the
Yeah.
time. They're like, "Oh, you wouldn't even know this guy's got money because he dresses like a normal guy. He doesn't have anything." And if, as a guy who has money myself, I honestly, Esther, I am cheap with stuff. I don't buy fancy clothes. I don't buy, like, I buy my stuff off, what is it? Shein, you know.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
know,
I think
Shein.
I think that you're throwing away your money if you're buying these Hermes bags and stuff. And my wife, you mentioned the bags. She bought all the bags, and then she said, and I was like, whatever, do what makes you happy. But now she's like, you know what? Now I'm so worried about these bags. I want to sell them so I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about them. So, going back to the car thing, like, what car gets everybody's attention?
To be very honest, because I don't care about cars at all. I have no clue what car is. I'm sure that all women are impressed with a car that's a fast car, I really think that that's what works with women.
Mm.
And I think for men, it makes them feel empowered when they drive a fast car. It makes them feel powerful when they pull up in front of a restaurant or a hotel in this car because everybody stares at them. It's their
Mm.
status symbol for a man. And there's these few guys on TikTok and they interview people actually as soon as they
Yeah.
step out of their car and they're like, is this car yours? This Jaguar,
Yeah.
this Rolls Royce or whatever. And they're like, yeah. And then they ask them what job they do. So that's also like how you get it imprinted in your brain that when you have a car like that, you're super wealthy because you have custom made cars nowadays. It's like crazy. So you can buy a car for a couple of $1 million if you want to, right? It's
Yeah.
beyond.
Uh,
Yeah, I think women are impressed. I hear this also from men that women literally ask what car they drive. But I'm
mm.
always, I'm very down to earth. I'm Dutch, as you know. So I'm like, I don't care what car you drive because you can drive like a Maserati, but you can still live with your parents. You know what I mean? Because you just want are a show off,
Yeah.
So according to what car
That's
you
most of the
drive,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
so according to what the more showy the car is, the more suspicious I will actually be of how
Mm.
genuine of a character you have. Because it will make me see you as a man who's dependent on this car to show his power. And that makes me not respect you as much as a man who drives an average car who's actually super wealthy. You know what I mean? Because the
Yeah.
super wealthy guy who drives like a normal car doesn't need to show off. So I really respect that. I think that's cool.
I'm with you on that. I think, don't show it, just have it. And then if you get to the point where it just doesn't matter and you really enjoy it, then yeah, buy it. But if you're buying it to impress everybody and you're living with your parents, I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah.
You've got your priorities all wrong.
Man, I am so happy that you turned into the Millionaire Mentorship Podcast. It's something that I've been working on for over 3 years right now. We're up to 150 podcast episodes. A lot of them are virtual. A lot of them are in studio, which is what we prefer. If you have a guest that you think that should be on our podcast, all you got to do is comment who it is. And we'll reach out to them, or if you want to reach out to them and reach out to us, we'd love to have them on a show. We're looking for entertaining, inspirational people that, just like you hear on the podcast every week, that can bring value and help our listening audience achieve their goals. If that's something for you, comment down below and let us know.
So, one thing that I was thinking about today, Esther, that is so different. I'm 47 and I grew up like right when online dating was starting and when it was actually taboo. You'd have to come up with a story if you met your date online because it was so one of those things that you just didn't do. Like it was like I was an early adopter. I did the match.com thing. And now people are not embarrassed to say I met you on Bumble or Tinder or anything like that.
Yes.
So I have like a two question thing here for you. So number one is are you going to be much better approaching someone out in the open than going online these days to actually decide who you get? And going back to that normal thing that we talked about before, I guess, what's the best way to approach someone?
I think people are really, really in need to meet each other organically again. I think people are so tired of dating apps. Part of the reason I think is because we don't really use the dating apps correctly. We don't know how to make like a really nice profile with nice pictures without it being fake. I hear all the time from men the same story. These girls, they all look different on their pictures than in reality, because they're all photoshopped and they present themselves as, I don't know what. And then they see these girls in reality and she has nothing to do with how she presents herself. Men don't know how to present themselves on dating apps. I've researched a lot of dating apps and I'm always like, oh my God, I can't believe it. This guy is probably really nice, but these pictures, they are just not, making him look good. So I think if you want to use a dating app to meet somebody, I really think you have to educate yourself nowadays into finding the right dating app for you because there are many different apps. And then also to learn how to present yourself. I think that's really something like you should follow a course or something. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we just did this all very random. But the truth is that it doesn't really work like that so much. I do believe that many people meet each other online. Although I hear all the time from my clients that they're exhausted from dating online, all this scrolling. And then there is this feeling of you have endless potential. So there's this feeling of I don't need to choose somebody because tomorrow night I can sit on my sofa in my comfort zone. I can keep on scrolling and seeing so many other people I can match with, you know? But I do believe, because I hear people say this, that they would love to meet, you know, somebody organically again, you know, just in a setting somewhere. So what I think is going to be very fashionable, actually, is the old school matchmaking offices. I think they will be actually doing very well in the near future. Because I think people want a more personalized experience and they don't want to exhaust themselves with just scrolling all the time. And I also think people don't want to waste their time, and a matchmaking office is way more direct. And because you pay money, there's really an investigation done in you, let's say. And I also think that events are a great place to go to and to meet somebody. You know, I discuss all these options with my clients on where to meet somebody, you know, nowadays. It can be also at church or at a local event that's happening, you know. So yeah, I think that when you are at an event or when you are anywhere and you meet somebody, you should always just be yourself and be kind and ask questions. Because when you ask the other person questions, it gives you time to relax a bit, to get used to this other person. And you don't have this feeling like, oh my God, what am I going to say? And you let this other person talk.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just be a good listener, right? Ask provocative questions and be a good listener is like the best way, and to disarm people, compliment them about something that they haven't heard before. I think those are all great ways. And I think too many people, like you said, what Esther, what you said that really struck me is that there's this endless supply now versus where, you know, it was like very
Yeah.
taboo before. Now it's like you got this app, you got that app, you got the other app, and everybody can meet everybody everywhere. So
It's a problem because even research has shown us now that when you send somebody into a shop and you tell them, like, you know, there's these five pair of shoes, choose one, they have an issue. It's difficult for these people to choose. And if you say there are two pair of shoes, choose one, it's easier because you only have one choice. It's this one or that one. So it's the same with the dating apps. It's just not good for us humans to have all these options, you know. It makes us actually lazy because it doesn't make us feel that we have to do anything for it. You know, we can be constantly 24/7 busy with matching with people online.
yeah, that's I totally agree. I think that people just need to go out and meet people in public and stop relying on these dating apps. It's just making people, like you said, lazy. Um, so here's a question for you. So what's the secret to attracting the man of your dreams if you're a woman and vice versa?
It's not really a secret, but what I think you should always aim for in life is to become the best version of yourself. And what do I mean with that? Is to you have to self-analyze a little bit. Nowadays, people, we are not so aware anymore of who we are, where we're going, because we're constantly distracted by the internet mostly, or by the pace of life, by everything that is thrown at us every day. We're distracted. So we're not so in tune with who we actually are from within. Because if you want to become the best version of yourself and express that, you first have to turn inwards and see who you really think you are from, you know, from the inside out. So the most important thing, if you want to attract the perfect partner for yourself, is that you are okay with yourself. Because if you're not okay with yourself, you will aim to look for somebody to give you something that you think you don't have. And that's the wrong position to start with, because then you are, first of all, desperate because you're hungry. You're hungry to find something that you cannot, you know, feed yourself with, let's say. And when you go into a supermarket and when you're hungry, you will choose anything
Yeah.
that's, you know, there. So if it's crisps or if it's Coca-Cola, whatever, if it's there in the beginning, you will take it. And it's the same thing with dating. When you are empty from within because you feel that you're missing something, and if I would just be with this guy or with a guy, I would be happier, then it's the wrong way to start. That's why it's so important to become this best version of yourself. That's why it's so important to learn about yourself first before you enter a relationship. And then once you understand who you are, where you want to go in life, and what your potential is, and what you're going to do about that, then you're going to level up. And energetically, you will be attracting different people who are on the same energetic level as you are. And that's why it's so important, if you want to do it right, if you want a healthy relationship, you have to energetically be already, higher up, because then you will also meet another person who is on that level, because we attract what we are. We don't attract what we want.
So Esther, how do you become the best version of yourself? That's a very introspective question, but that is exactly where I want to go. I think we all want to become the best version of ourselves, but sometimes it takes work. So what's the best way? Where do we start?
I always do the following. I'm super practical with these things, because you can analyze yourself and your life forever until you die, right? And you do that anyway, yes. So you make lists. You start with writing down, what do I want to do with my life? From on the moment that you write that, because of course your wishes, your values might change. What you need now might not be the same what you need in 10 years from now. But start with the now, because that's all we know. What do you want to do with your life? So that includes, what kind of work do you want to do? What kind of education do you want to have? What kind of studies do you want to have? What kind of hobbies do you want to have? Because your life is not just work. It's also the other things, the creative side of yours, Do you read books? What kind of things do you like to do? And then you automatically attract people who are like-minded. That's how it works. Because again, you attract what you are, you don't attract what you want. So I think that you're never done with becoming the best version of yourself. You're always, for especially men, you're always busy with improving yourself, right? And I think that you first have to learn who you are in order to be able to understand what road you should take to become this best version of yourself. And I have women who really struggle with that, because they work and they're exhausted and they feel that, they're not in touch anymore with their feminine energy, because they're in constant fight flight mode, because they're out there in a world competing with men, in the workforce. So with these women, I literally practice how to be more in your feminine, because a woman who's in her feminine is all about doing. It's all about being. She's not about doing. Men are about doing, about pursuing. Women are about receiving. So I literally sit with them and I give them exercises to listen to music, to go into nature, to take a hot bath, to read a book, to start painting, to start dancing classes, to bring flowers in your home, to light candles. It sounds ridiculous, all these things, right? But this is literally...
I'm actually, it sounds so nice what you're just
Yeah,
saying.
this is literally what you do to be more tuned in your feminine energy. And the good thing with that, why am I saying this, is the more you are tuned in as a woman, in your feminine energy, the more you will also be liked and loved by your man, because a man who's tuned into his masculine energy is attracted to a woman who's tuned into her feminine energy, because she gives him what he cannot give himself, right? It's the opposite. It's polarity, and opposites attract. So all these things are part of this process to becoming the best version of yourself. And it's literally a school of many, many pieces of the puzzle that each individual has to figure out for themselves, what fits the best with them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I like that answer a lot. It gave me a lot to reflect on. So you're a world traveler, Esther. You're living there. Something that just popped into my mind was, I heard this the other day from somebody that Americans are very, I guess they said it very well. They said that Americans expect everybody to be like them when they're visiting other countries, and other people fit in to other countries. So what would you say, like, are Americans attractive to like a European like yourself, or are we like unattractive the way we present ourselves? And how are Americans perceived by the rest of by the rest of the world, in your opinion?
Look, when I'm in Greece in the summer, during the summer, Americans are seen as the best tourists. I love Americans. First of all, you are super open. Whenever I'm in America myself, people start to talk to you. You know, you're in an elevator, an American will say, "Oh, you smell so good. What perfume is that?" Europeans are way more conservative. So we're not so open. We're not so easygoing with each other. So I love that about Americans. Americans are super respected in Greece, in tourism especially, because you always tip. Because, you know, with tips, for example, the Chinese, if I'm allowed to say this, they
Yes.
don't tip.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I know how hard it is for Greeks who are working in the tourism industry. They don't earn much money, so they're dependent on the tips, like it is in the US when you work in a restaurant or a bar. So I know how happy people are with Americans because you just tip. That's your thing. You're not questioning it. So you see other tourists, you know, who come to Greece and they're thinking, should I tip? Should I not tip? Chinese don't even tip. They don't even think about it. So yeah, Americans are super welcomed here in Greece and also in the Netherlands, where I'm from. Americans are very, very loved. I love Americans. I love your country because in America, for me as a European, you have the feeling that the possibilities are endless, that even
Yeah.
if you are a nobody, if you
Mm.
work hard, if you find, you know, if you hustle, you can really make it. In Europe, we don't have that. Europe
Mm.
is very, very conservative. So here you have to go to school, you have to follow the strict path if you want to make it. It's way more difficult here to, we don't have this American attitude, like, you know, you can be anything you want. And then what I also think you're amazing at, you're like the best in the world for me, is in performances, like theater, art. It's like the best shows are done in the US. And your country has such a versatile nature. You have everything, you know, from gorgeous mountains to like it's lakes. I just love your country and your people. If I just didn't need like a visa to, if I didn't need a green card, I mean, if I could just stay with a visa for as long as I wanted, because as a European, I can only stay 90 days, I would say I'm going to live there for a year. I would love it.
Mm. I did not know that. So you actually need a visa to stay longer than 90 days as a European.
No, I need a visa anyway to stay for 90 days. It's called an ESTA. It's called ESTA papers. Everybody has to do that who's not American. You just do that online. It's not very difficult. But then after 90 days, you have to leave the country. You can't stay longer. So if I would want to stay longer, I would need a green card, which is a whole different process, right? And especially now with Trump, I think it's even more difficult. But I wouldn't want to like, you know, become an American or anything, but I would like it because I find your country so interesting and I would love to learn things, is to stay there for a year. But my thought is maybe for next, after the European summer, to maybe come for 2 or 3 months to meet people and to connect more and to, yeah, learn from you because you are, I think, better in many things than we are in Europe.
I think it's kind of one of those things, the grass is greener on the other side type of things, because I think as Americans, when we're in Europe, we're like, wow, I really could see myself living here. And then when you get, you know, and whenever you're traveling, like I love Italy, I love the Netherlands, I love Greece, I love all those countries, but I'm not thinking about it the same way you are, because I am definitely spoiled as an American just from you talking about that right now. I'm like, yeah, I can stay as long as I want, because I didn't even know about that restriction. For me, traveling is like, yeah, as long as I can afford to go or want to stay, it's endless. And so I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I just didn't know at all about that. But that's super cool. I feel like, you know, when so going back to the original question, so when you're out there traveling, let's say you're an American and you're in a place like the Europeans, what is the culture to meet a woman without being offensive?
That depends on in which country you are.
Let's
That
talk
really
about
depends.
your two countries, Greece and the Netherlands.
At the Netherlands. Oh, the Netherlands, it's very easy. Because the Netherlands are on the surface easygoing people. They're pretty open. If you start to talk to somebody in the Netherlands, they will reply. A girl will respond. She's not snob. She's not nasty. So if you are in a bar and you're, a kind American, you're easygoing guy, dude, whatever, just speak to her. Just say anything you want. You don't need to know any specifics, I think, with Dutch women. With Greek women, it's way more complicated because Greek women have an attitude. Greek women are, they're Mediterranean, so they're hot-headed, and they can be a bit bitchy. So with Greek women, you really have to compliment them immediately. You have to buy them an expensive drink. You have to show up in a way that shows that you are a little bit well off. It's important for Greeks. They're very status focused.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there any other countries, Esther, out there that you think are easy or tough to date in that you've been to?
I think in general, Scandinavian countries are a little bit like the Netherlands. It's easier because Scandinavians are also very easygoing people on the surface, right? Easy to approach. They are very naive. I think the Scandinavians are more naive than the Dutch are. And Greeks, Spanish, Italians, women, right, are not naive at all. You have to be careful with these women. You have to know, you have to have a plan. You just don't go up to a woman like an idiot and say, hey, how are you? You have to think, you have to study her a little bit from afar, and then you have to think how you're going to approach her, and you have to be presentable. How you look in the Mediterranean countries is very important. For example, the first time I moved to Greece, I lived in the north of Greece. And the first thing that I saw, I will never forget this, that I noticed, everybody was wearing sunglasses, super cool leather jackets, and they were all looking very flashy in general, because it's so important in Greece how you look. You go somewhere, you can never be overdressed in Greece. That's the part that I like, because I like to dress. Sometimes, I like to dress up a lot and I don't care where I go. And sometimes I just like to go with the jeans. And in Greece, you can just be anything. It's wonderful. I love it.
That's
so,
awesome.
you have to be careful how you present yourself in the Mediterranean countries, because they're way more obsessed with looks in the Mediterranean.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up with the most provocative question I have for you. What is you always hear about sex in terms of time, how long someone should go for. So what is the answer?
Well, the average of what I read is 11 minutes, right?
Okay.
But this depends. Look, if you are two bunnies and you're all the time on top of each other, I don't think that you can last the 11 minutes. But if you are, and also, what kind of foreplay do you do? You know what I mean? I always calculate the whole thing. I don't just calculate the actual act, because sex is not just about the actual acting it out, it's the whole pre, during, after thing. And it's the whole the pre, I call it, is how you are in general with each other, because if you want to keep the desire, let's say, if you want to have a lasting desire, you need to have space, right? Like fire needs air, desire needs space. So you have to be sure that you kind of have this push situation going on with your partner. You shouldn't always know everything about each other, because at some point that's really boring. There has to be something intriguing about your partner that you still want to discover. And that also has to do then with the quality of your sex life. So I always teach my clients to restrict with their energy, with what they say. You don't need to say every little thought you have on your mind to your spouse, because you want him to stay attracted to you. A man should never be 100% sure that this woman will stay with him forever. He should always have a certain anxiety, stress, not anxiety, that she doesn't really need him, so she could leave if she is not happy. So he has to prove himself all the time to her. That's the concept of sex. That's what you need to have in a relationship.
Mm.
And then you have to literally seduce each other. I think that the pre part is as equally important as the actual act of sex. Because what you do before is actually what creates this whole feeling of intimacy, because it's something you only do with this person, right? You don't do it with anybody else. The flirting, the sending flirty text messages, the buying specific underwear, lingerie for each other, clothes, the setting up certain dates, that's something new, a place that you don't know yet. You discover something new together. And then also the dirty talk. I think that's very important, how you talk to each other, words you use with each other, which is something so private. And that's why it's so sensual and so sexy, because it's only between you and him, or between you and her. So I don't think it matters so much how the actual act, how long it lasts. And I would be very surprised if there's a woman who is with her watch in bed, like, oh my God, it's 6.5 minutes. What's going on? You know what I mean? I really think it's the whole experience. And also afterwards, the staying in bed, cuddling, lying there, connecting, talking about how it was, how it felt, because otherwise it's like, let's say it's 11 minutes. You just jump in bed 11 minutes and then that's it. You go have a shower and you don't talk about it. It's like awkward, right? That's something you can do with somebody you don't have any feelings for. But if it's your spouse, if it's your partner, it's a beautiful thing to afterwards also ask, hey, did you like this? Or next time, would you like to do that? Or how did you think of this? Or whatever, did you come, for example? Questions,
Yeah.
I think that's that's more important than the whole how long it lasts.
I think that's great advice. I have a friend of mine who tells me he does it for hours, and I said I don't think anybody likes that, like besides you. So like I told him that, and I said I go, I don't even know how that's possible, to be honest with you. That was part of the reason for one of my questions. So would a woman at one point in time not enjoy that, I would suppose?
Well, I have one client. I don't have her anymore as a client. I think of her sometimes because she used to tell me that her ex-husband, when she was still married with him, he was exhausting her because he would like last 45 minutes. And she was like, I just can't. He exhausts me. I don't want to do this. So she was always hiding in the bathroom because she didn't want to come out to the bedroom because he would be ready for this whole thing that would never ever end. But that also shows you that obviously it was a one-way thing because she didn't enjoy it. So I don't know what he was doing exactly. He was probably focusing on himself alone, right? Because if you are in bed together for that long, shouldn't you as a partner try to please the other person as well? I would assume. And you hear this so often from men, like they show off with how long they last or how big they are. And I really think that from a woman's point of view, that's not what is the most important thing for us.
For women, it's more about communicating and listening and trying to find out what they want and men are exactly the opposite. I think like that's why we're so complicated, because we're always focused on ourselves versus
Yeah.
the unit. And I think that's why people need to talk to someone like yourself, Esther. How do people follow you, Esther, and how do they get a hold of you if they need extra help?
Well, they can follow me either on Facebook or on Instagram, LinkedIn, obviously, and TikTok and YouTube. And on Instagram and on Facebook and on TikTok, I have a bio link. And in the bio link, you will find my free dating guide. You'll find my website. You'll find all the information about my one-on-one coaching. You'll find my ebook. And also in April, you will find the course that I'm setting up now. And you can find me there if my email's there. You can read everything about me and what I do and how I can help you.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation again. You are an amazing woman, and I think that you've got a lot to share. I learn something every time we talk, and I hope we can do it again soon. And I really appreciate
I'm so
coming.
happy. You are such a nice host, really. You ask amazing questions. You are, risky. I like it that you take risks with the questions because we talk together about subjects that other people are afraid to touch, because they're afraid of how people will react to that. But I actually think it's very important. Like, for example, to talk about sex, it's very important because you want to help people, right? That's the point.
Well, I think that, selfishly, I always want to know these questions. If I have somebody who's an amazing talent like yourself that knows all this information and then we can share it with everybody else and they're afraid of asking, then it's going to be a really good podcast because we're willing to go where other people aren't willing to go. And that's when you have somebody who like yourself, who's talked to so many people, studied so many things. It's like what everybody wants to know that they're afraid to ask. As long as it's not going to take me offline, I'm going to ask it,
Yes, you're right. Thank you so much for having me, Troy.
Guys, make sure you follow Esther Sarphatie. She's an amazing woman. She's an amazing counselor, psychologist. Are you a psychologist, right?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I know there's a psychiatrist as well. Are you as that as well?
No, I'm a psychologist. A psychiatrist is a doctor.
Medicine, yes.
Yes.
So she can help you with everything that's going on with you. She can help you with as if a couple, and make sure you follow her. Make sure you buy what she's selling because it's worth it. And who you spend your time with and who you spend your money with really matters. Make sure you guys subscribe. Give this podcast a 5-star review. We definitely appreciate you listening. And Esther, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Troy. Thank you.
Peace.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into our podcast right now. I am so happy that you are here. You are in the right spot to be getting inspired by other people that have just achieved their goals so that you can achieve your goals. Do me a favor. Leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us grow. And give us comments and feedbacks. We read those. It helps us grow. The most important person in this podcast is the listener, right? And so if you give us your feedback, it will allow us to create a better podcast for you. And make sure you enjoy the show and leave us a 5-star review.